Hey everybody. So today we're going to take a look at a prop replica of a Horghan and also the Tox Uhtaht. So this prop was seen in an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, which was from season 3, and it was called Captain's Holiday. And so it's a great episode where Captain Picard is taking a much needed vacation on the planet Risa. And while he's there, he inadvertently gets mixed up in a little treasure hunt where he meets this lady named Vash, who's this kind of sultry woman that he meets and kind of ends up having a fling with. And Vash would later show up again in another episode of The Next Generation later on. And I think she shows up in Deep Space Nine as well. So anyway, they're searching for this thing called the Tox Uhtaht, which is a crystal. And it has these powers or properties. Well, here, I'll just let the Horghan explain it. He can say it better than me.
It was invented by a scientist named Cal Dano in the mid-27th century. The Uhtaht is a quantum phase inhibitor capable of halting all nuclear reaction within a star.
Now, the Horghan here is a prop that would show up occasionally throughout the series and other Star Trek series as well, but this was the episode where you first saw it. And so Picard and Vash, because Vash used to work for the professor that knew where the Tox Uhtaht was hidden, they end up going on this adventure on trying to find where it's buried. It was buried in a cave, according to the professor, who had died, and Vash had the information. In the meantime, there's a Ferengi named Sovak, who is also after the Tox Uhtaht, and he's been following and kind of harassing Vash, and including ransacking her hotel room a couple of times. And there are two Horghans, that's the aliens that you just saw. They're from the future, and they came back 300 years because legend had it that Picard is the one who found the Tox Uhtaht. So and that's supposedly where that device came from. And so they came back to get it. So anyway, when Vash and Picard end up finally getting to the cave, of course everybody shows up, including Sovak, the Ferengi, and the Horghans, and Sovak forces them to dig at gunpoint, and so they're digging for hours to try to find this thing, and it turns out it's not there. For whatever reason, it wasn't there, and everybody's mystified by it, and they just assume that the professor had the wrong data. So by the time Vash and Picard come back to the hotel room, Picard is kind of waiting in a dark little alcove area of the lobby, and he sees Vash, and she's now all cleaned up and dressed, and it looks like she's getting ready to quickly leave. Well, he comes up and says, leaving so soon, and it kind of surprises her. And it turns out, Picard is already onto her. He figured out what's going on. So it turns out that Vash had actually already gotten to the planet much earlier, found the Tox Uhtaht in the cave, dug it up and got it, and then she hid it because she didn't want Sovak to get it. So let me show you some clips from the episode, and it'll show you where that comes into play. So Vash decides to come clean and reveal to Picard where she hid the Tox Uhtaht. So earlier in the episode, we see this big fountain that has a big, huge Horghan there, and then it has all these little ones there. Well, she reaches for this particular one. Then she brings the Horghan up to Picard, where she's about to reveal where the Tox Uhtaht is hidden. And here she flips the top of it open, and there it is, the Tox Uhtaht is hidden on the inside. And here they're both looking at the Tox Uhtaht, and they're discussing how it's a piece of the future, and Picard says it's a very dangerous piece. So apparently this could be used as a weapon, but it's a very beautiful prop. You can see it looks like it's a crystal, and it has all these interesting little holes or something drilled into it. So yeah, it's a really neat piece. Now, shortly after Vash reveals to Picard where she hid it, there's the Horghans. They suddenly appear, and now they want the Tox Uhtaht. But Vash is saying, how do we know what their intentions are for it? Picard just assumed that it belonged to them and he was going to give it to them. But now Picard starts to have some doubts about that. So when Vash finds out that Horgans were after this thing, she realizes that the professor had said that it was two Horgans that came to steal the Tox Uhtaht to begin with. So Picard realizes now that the Horgans are up to no good, and they are demanding him hand over the Tox Uhtaht. So after the Horgans shot Vash with a phaser, they stunned her. Picard was smart enough to realize before all this happened that he had contacted Riker to use Code 14, which apparently he can use the transporter to blow up the Tox Uhtaht, and there you can see in the middle it got exploded. And the Vorgons are out of luck. They didn't get it because Picard blew it up. So the Vorgons reveal that history recorded that Picard was the one who destroyed the Uhtaht. So he fulfilled his destiny. So looking back at this prop now, I always kind of figured that they would make another episode based on this one, because like a part two, because they kind of left it hanging in a way. And Picard even mentions that now that the Vorgons know where the Tox Uhtaht is buried, and when it was there, they could come back anytime and try to get it. And so it would have been interesting to see how they would have resolved that. But they never did, so it was kind of interesting. But let's take a closer look at this prop here. So these Horgons, you could actually find them on eBay. They're pretty readily available, and there was different people making these. Probably the cheapest one was made by Think Geek back in the day when they were still around, and theirs was only $20, and it was actually a candle holder. The very top flat part of this would open up, or you could take it off and put a candle in there. And then there was another one made by Roddenberry that was more expensive. That was like $200 or $250. It was kind of pricey. And then I've seen some various fan-made ones as well. But the problem with those is none of those had the opening top, and none of them had the Tox Uhtaht on the inside. They were all just the solid statuette. So this one here is unique in the sense that it does have that feature. So fortunately, a friend of mine got me in contact with the gentleman who made these, and as far as I know, he only made 4 of them, so they're pretty rare. And he did a really good job on this, so you can really see the nice texturing that's on here. And it's made of, I think it's resin from what I can tell. And also, I'm not exactly sure, but it looks like it was made from the ones that Roddenberry had. So Roddenberry actually got in contact with the original gentleman who made the prop, who I actually know the guy, and he sent them the master. He had a master of the Horghan and sent it so that Roddenberry can get theirs made. And so I'm thinking that this one is from the same master, because just from looking at it, it looks very similar. Although I've seen some that are different sizes. So this one looks to be, I don't know, maybe a little bit smaller than the one on the show, but I can't really tell for sure. And I actually had to do a little bit of touch-up paint on this because it was a little dark. It was a little darker than I had liked. And so I did a very light dry brushing with some brown paint to just kind of make this a little bit lighter, because the lid actually has a lighter shade than the rest of it. So the gentleman that made it must have painted them separately, I guess. But so I think it looks a little more even now. So this top piece, you can actually take this off, and on the inside here, there is the Tox Uhtaht, and I think that is so cool. That was the main reason I bought this one. So yeah, this thing is, you can see it's got some heft to it. You can see the inside here, what that looks like. So yeah, it looks like it's made of a resin material. And then they have this nice little compartment here where the Tox Uhtaht sits in here. And then you can kind of see it's like a little bowl in there. All right, so let's take a closer look at the Uhtaht. So here we can see the Uhtaht, and we can see that it's just beautiful. I mean, this is a really beautifully made piece. So this is, I'm assuming it's made the same way the original was. The original was a block of acrylic, and they just cut it, you know, with a saw or whatever, and just made all these different facets and angles, and then they took a drill and just drilled holes on each angle or each facet. And I think the original prop actually used 2 different sized drill bits, because it looks like there's some smaller holes and bigger holes. The gentleman that made this one looks like he just used the same one, but it still looks really good. It's very much the same effect. And then after that, you just polish it all up and make it all nice and shiny like this. But it's just a stunning little piece. I mean, this thing is just like really nice looking. Now, I do think this one is smaller than the original. In watching that episode again, I could tell when Picard is holding it, that one's a little bit bigger than this. It's probably maybe this much taller, maybe. And so, yeah, it definitely, it looks like it had some weight too, because when he first pulls it out of the Horghan, you can see Vash, kind of her arm kind of goes up a little bit after the weight is taken off of there. So, but you know, acrylic has some weight to it anyway. But yeah, the gentleman that made this, boy, he did an amazing job on that. I mean, it's just stunning. So yeah, I was really happy that his came with this, because none of the other ones did. So that was the main reason I bought his. So there it is, the Horghan replica. And I think the gentleman that made this did a really good job. I love this feature, and I think he did a really good job on it. I saw pictures of the original prop that the gentleman who made the original prop provided, and it was pretty cool. I mean, I think he got it pretty spot on when it comes to this stuff. And he even tried. I think the gentleman that made this one even tried to make the facets the same as the original prop. I mean, I could tell just by looking at it that the angles were all kind of the same on it. And so I think it was, really cool that he at least tried to get the facets all correctly done. But yeah, really cool prop, a great episode. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Captain's Holiday from season 3 of Star Trek The Next Generation. It's a great episode. Funny scene involving this with Picard earlier in the episode, and it's just a really fun episode. I always like those treasure hunt kind of things. All right, well, that's it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please give a like and subscribe if you'd like. And thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate that. So thanks again, and have a good one.